The arrest of Arvind Kejriwal is now not just a point of political battle, it is now a global issue, a foreign policy skirmish, so to speak. I'm Barkhadat, you're with the Mojo story. India has summoned a top US diplomat, the foreign ministry to be precise, has summoned a top US diplomat after the Americans called for a fair and speedy legal process for the jail chief minister of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, who has been taken into custody in what's come to be known as the Delhi liquor scam. The Aam Aadmi Party has been accused by the Enforcement Directorate of receiving 100 crores in kickbacks in return for a favorable policy that was later actually taken back by the Delhi government. The Kejriwal camp says that this is entirely political. It comes from insecurity, political insecurity about the rise of the Aam Aadmi Party. Sunita Kejriwal has been appearing regularly on behalf of her husband. She's talking about a potentially big expose, quote unquote, in court tomorrow. Meanwhile, the images you see on your screen are of a top diplomat from the American embassy arriving before the foreign ministry that issued a strongly worded statement saying that states are meant to be respectful of each other's sovereignty. They argued, or rather the foreign ministry argued, that what the Americans had done by taking a public position on the Kejriwal arrest amounted to unwanted aspersions and unhealthy precedents. In the meantime, we are awaiting what happens from in the Delhi High Court, and as we speak, we have we have another update that there is a public interest petition before the court saying that Kejriwal cannot continue to be the chief minister while he is in jail. So there's a lot to talk about, these diplomatic summons, the Kejriwal case going global, and what might happen in court. Let's introduce our panel on the program today as we look at the big Kejriwal arrest and the questions that come up, legal, political, and now international. Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, is with us. Welcome to the program. Madhavan Narayan, senior journalist, is with us. Welcome to the program. Sandeep Ghosh is with us. Sandeep Ghosh is a supporter of the Prime Minister, but not always a supporter of the government. How does he think of the, what does he think of the handling of the Kejriwal case? We'll find out. Group Captain Augustine is with us. He's normally a security affairs analyst. His Twitter timeline today was ablaze with actually support for the summons to the American diplomat. We'll find out why. And finally, joining us from the Aam Aadmi Party is its leader and spokesperson, Siddharth. Welcome back to the program, Siddharth. Let's get started right away. We're awaiting and we'll give you an update if we hear anything from the High Court. In the meantime, as I said, the Aam Aadmi Party is talking about a potentially big expose in the court when Kejriwal appears tomorrow. Kejriwal referred to what he called as Jai Chands in court today. He's obviously talking about accused in the case that have become approvers, company like Aurobindo Pharma. More about that later in the program. Let's talk first about the diplomatic summons. Siddharth is a member of the Aam Aadmi Party. I remember Arvind Kejriwal, once I asked him, sir, आज आपको बाकी पार्टी से क्या distinguish करता है? He said, मैं कट्टर ईमानदार और कट्टर देशभक्त हूँ. The देशभक्त camp might argue कि other countries should not get involved in our internal affairs. What do you say, Siddharth?
Yeah, Barkha, let me at the very outset categorically say that every sovereign country, be it India or United States, every sovereign country would not want any other country to come and give its make sermonizations on its internal matters. That said, what has happened essentially is that in Hindi, जो हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना कि उड़ता तीर ले लिया है. If that was true, the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, invited this statement from United States when he said that he is so pally with Mr. The President Barack Obama कि मेरा उनके साथ तू तड़ाक की बातचीत होती है. When he went to the US and said that अब की बार Trump सरकार. So if you become too pally with that somebody, obviously that other entity will also get too pally with you. So basically, United States, what it has done today, although it is uncalled for, still I think that the BJP and Mr. Modi, in its delusion of becoming a Vishwa Guru and trying to project its image, it also did the same thing with Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar, or by saying that Barack Obama ke saath mera tu tadak ki baat hai. So basically what has happened is that you can mount a tiger, but the moment you try to dismount a tiger, it devours you. So there is a saying that Pandora's box, if you open a Pandora's box, even gods cannot control that. So essentially what has happened is that Mr. Kejriwal unlike other chief ministers, is a chief minister of Delhi. Let us understand the politics or the reality, practical aspects behind it. Every country in the world, nearly 200 countries, have their embassies in Delhi. Everyone keeps on reporting those things to their respective capitals. Now, what has happened is that whenever the president of the United States has visited Delhi, the first lady has invariably visited the mohalla clinics and the schools of Delhi government. So Arvind
Mhm.
Kejriwal being seen by many countries, especially the democratic liberal countries, as someone who is delivering on promises. He is democratic, he is participatory in nature, and he delivers service to the electorate. The people who have voted for him, he serves them. So the issue here is not about the US meddling or interfering in our affairs. The issue is that this has been invited by the BJP itself, by Mr. Modi itself. Tell me
Yeah.
one thing, Barkha. How come it is good when Mr. Modi is ab ki baar, when Mr. Modi is eulogized in the West, we also beat our chest कि भारत का नाम बहुत ऊंचा हो गया दुनिया में, विश्व में हम लोगों का डंका बज गया. आपका डंका
Hmm.
जब बजेगा तो it is a double edged sword, right? If
So
you
can I
do
can
things
I
good, yeah.
can I ask you something? It's very interesting to me that as an AAP spokesperson whose leader is in custody, you on principle don't want the Americans to be issuing statements for your leader. On principle.
It's not about my leader. It's the statement is about the state of affairs of another foreign country. The point I'm trying to make is that Mr. Modi meddled in the affairs of the United States. The day you do that, you are inviting the United States to meddle in your affairs. Now, if you keep on complaining, because I think Barkha, you also follow the State Department very closely. Every day they come out with at least a dozen handouts. They do press conferences every day. This statement doesn't end here. Once the State Department has made a statement, today you have called the ambassador and reprimanded or whatever you asked him. Obviously, in the next 24 to 48 hours, the State Department will again come back with something. I don't know what it will be. But the point here is that that's what I'm trying to make. That Mr. Modi had to understand before opening a Pandora's box and saying that Barack Obama के साथ मेरा तू तड़ाक के संबंध है, trying to go to the US and participating in a political rally and saying ab ki baar Trump sarkar. Basically, if you get too pally with a snake. I think most of us we also
Okay.
have pets in
I,
our house. We have dogs in our house. It is a carnivorous animal. If you want to have a carnivorous animal in your house, then you need to understand how to treat it.
okay.
You treat it
You,
it will treat you
you,
the same way you
So
treat it.
your basic. Okay, I've got your point. In principle, you don't agree with another country meddling, but you blame the prime minister for having got too embedded in US politics. And now this is what we're seeing. Let's open this up for conversation. First, Sanjay Hegde, then Group Captain, and then I'll come to Madhavan and Sandeep. Sanjay Hegde, does this amount to interference? The Germans have done it. The Americans have done it. Siddharth says, on principle, he doesn't agree with it, but Modi government has brought it upon itself.
Well, he may say whatever, but it is not unknown for Western democracies to speak to a fellow democracy. Long ago, when George Fernandez was on the run during the emergency, there were fears that when he was captured, he would not be captured alive. It was somebody very high up in the prime minister's office who, when he heard that he had been captured, made sure that it was uttered in the presence of the ambassadors that if Mr. Fernandez was captured, he would no doubt receive the full treatment under the rule of law. So the Germans then understood that Mr. Fernandez had been captured and made demands, and that is what
Right.
saved Mr. Fernandez's life. These are documented things, and it's not that every little thing that happens inside a country is commented on. If somebody comments on your internal affairs, you decide whether you want to hear that person or you don't want to hear the person.
But we don't comment. We don't comment on the trial against Trump. India doesn't comment on the trial in America against Trump, right?
We don't comment. But supposing we were to have certain other foreign policy adventures, supposing the Chinese got very angry with us, where would we go? We would have to go. We would have to go to the Americans, right? So these are things which, in diplomacy, are best avoided. But when they come, you have to learn to ignore them, or you have to learn to tell them, yes, 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 we
So
take
you
your
don't
concerns,
agree?
but
Do you
please
agree?
mind your own business.
Do you agree with the summons? Do you agree with the summons to the US diplomat?
That is a matter which the Foreign Office determines, and I don't think we are. At least I am not well versed in diplomacy, and I've been sitting around too many ambassadors to go through this language of démarche and this and that. So yes, if they think that it is worth their time to call somebody over and give them some tea and say that this is our official position, so be it.
Okay.
Everybody in the diplomat world knows what is sought to be conveyed and when photo ops are required.
I'll just briefly get Sandeep before coming to group captain, because Sanjay Hegde is saying leave it to the diplomats, but you've got to ignore something. Sandeep, going by your comments on social media, at least, you felt this was going too far. It could have been left to a statement. Sandeep, can you unmute yourself, please? You muted at your end, Sandeep.
Yeah, no, the question is, there is a matter of optics. There, as Sanjay used the term photo op bit is there. So that was very much, I think, the intention, and especially in the election season. But I would make a distinction between what Sanjay was talking, the kind of incidents which Sanjay was talking about, like George Fernandez, etc., which are human rights issues, which are freedom issues, to something which is judicial. I know for a fact, firsthand, I know of an incident. Sometimes there are these presumptions in the Western democracy, perhaps, that India is just another of these developing countries where the government calls the shots. A particular big, very large multinational was having a major lawsuit in India and on a certain matter with the state. And there, that particular government tried to intervene and go to the PMO's office those days, not the BJP PMO. I'm talking about the previous regime, and asking them to intervene. And they were told in no uncertain terms, we have an independent judiciary. Don't think that we can. We can or try. You go and hire the best of lawyers. And which they did, and they finally got the reprieve. But the fact was made clear that we don't interfere in what's going to happen in court. So in this particular case, the distinction is between that. If, let's say, somebody was in prison for political reasons, if it was done, some political protests, etc., in that situation, for any other country to comment would have, I think this was inappropriate. And I think there was also an element on the other side. If the America is also going through its own set of compulsions.
So you're saying both America and India responses were inappropriate?
No, India's approach, I'm not saying inappropriate, it was perhaps exaggerated, but they had no option but if they ignored it, I think that would have been wrong. But whether to call them and use the photo op, etc., whether you needed to do that, that's a diplomatic call. I would agree. That's a diplomatic call. But India certainly had to make it clear that this is a legal process which is happening. It's got nothing to do with a political, irrespective of what people may assume here. So that distinction needs to be made. But if there was somebody who was imprisoned for some political thing, making some protests, taken in, by that situation, any country can comment, and we do. And if you recall, Sheikh Hasina, as recently something was said, not talking to the opposition, he said, I will talk after Biden calls Trump for a chat. I will also do the similar conversations here. I think that's par for the course.
Group captain, you agreed with the summons. Sandeep says, maybe a statement would have done. Did you really need the photo op of this diplomat getting out of a car? The AAP leader says he doesn't agree with the American interference, but Modi government had called it upon themselves, right? Sanjay Hegde says, I'm a lawyer, I leave it to the diplomats. What do you say? Why do you agree with the summons? Because some might say India's being prickly, India's being oversensitive, issue a statement, be done with it, move on. Why give them so much importance?
Very true. So let's break it down, sir. Barka. Someone comments the way I look. I have two options. A, ignore. B, politely give it back to him. C, probably give him one thappad. So the first action is politely give it back to him. How do you politely, in the diplomatic parlance, give it back to him? By calling him and, like Sanjay said, give him a cup of tea, make him or her sit for 30, 40 minutes, and tell them go away. 7th of March, Russia called the US diplomat and said, I'll throw you out. 15th of March, this March, US called the Russian diplomat and said, your drone was shot on over Black Sea and blah, blah. Pakistanis called a diplomat and said, your Biden statement, I don't agree, and I'll, probably take action against you. So if you look, if you do a little Google, you'll see this, people coming and going for a cup of tea is something that happens very regularly. That is point number one. But I have some diplomat friends and in the family as well. I must tell you what happens in this institute. They play out this scenario during the the foreign officers training, where how to give cold shoulder, how not to laugh, give a stern face, switch off the AC, maybe make the temperature a little warm, little cold, call them all over, have three, have four, have five, and when you go get called, how should you behave? So all this is some kind of a small little drama they put up, but the point is home. It is the first step from ignoring something that has been said against you. But there is a serious issue, Barkha. That is, how will US react? That is what Sanjay alluded to. How will US react remains to be seen. And I have seen the wide spectrum of US's reaction. It could be from sanctions to nothing. So tomorrow, day after, how is it going to react is something that we need to see. And US, especially if they view you as a pushover, then they will push you over very hard. I mean, the entire West, I mean, not only US.
Okay.
They have that kind
Okay.
of an attitude. So
Okay.
that remains to be seen, Barkha. Over to you.
Okay, Madhavan, let's bring you in. I think we've been all quite circumspect about the summons themselves because basically it's about India, and India is not government. It's not AAP, it's not BJP, it's about the country. And I think the point would be made that, it's very rare that, very rare, I can't even imagine that the MEA would issue a statement on Trump. Even if tomorrow Trump was barred by some court, we would not do it. It's not the Indian way to meddle in the internal affairs. Whatever you may think of what's happened with Kejriwal, you may think it's terrible, you may think he deserved it, you may think it's outrageous. The point here is the diplomatic summons. Madhavan?
Yeah, I think it's, first of all, let's understand that power equations are uneven while countries are supposed to be equal to each other in an ideal world in terms of sovereignty. I want to take you back a bit, Barkha, to basically explain certain things that have changed in global diplomacy. And in my opinion, they should. See, this whole business of non-interference in another country's affairs is essentially a post-colonialism product. When there was so much of imperialism and even military occupation and intervention, you have known about Japanese in Korea or Vietnam, and India just recovering from colonialism. This was the context in which doctrines like Panchsheel came about. We talked about countries being sovereign, and therefore interference was equated with imperialism or return of colonialism. But now there is a new diplomacy in which human rights and democratic values are considered as desirable values, and a certain amount of leeway should be given for that. We all are worried about Ukraine and Gaza, even if somebody could say it's Israel's internal affair or Palestine's internal affair, but we know that certain things have some human angle. The third is very important in our context today as to why US is concerned, because US has huge business interests in India, and rule of law is a very important aspect of business diplomacy and trade diplomacy. And I've said this before, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act is the elephant in the room. It's not the ED as such. The law itself is questionable, has draconian provisions of detention without trial or proper trial, even charge sheet, and therefore this might have been seen by the US as an opportunity to really look at the Kejriwal as a news peg on which it can express itself on the rule of law, because this could, let me give you an example of how India's Polaris software head Arun Jain was detained for weeks in Indonesia on some, nationalistic grounds in a banking software deal. And countries also guard business interests through some diplomatic interventions in which rule of law is important. I don't want to go into the details of the Investment Guarantee Act and all. And
Okay.
typically, every country. I have three very important points to make. Barka, please allow me. One is that every country guards its interests, and India itself, for instance, has been extraordinarily interested in things like Sri Lanka, Fiji, and Mauritius because of people of Indian origin. And may I add that in Maldives and Sri Lanka, India has even sent troops for on what could be construed as an internal matter. And last but not the least, Nehru was there in Spain supporting the Republicans against General Franco. We have a history. India has a history of commitment to democratic values, and so does US. And one diplomat, Dennis Cox, wrote a book called Estranged Democracy, saying, why should India and US have adverse relations? So last but not the least, the most important part, the current conundrum of Indian diplomacy is that we are behaving like China while wanting to be with the US. So nationalism also involves nationalism of values and not just sovereignty as a historic cultural construct. And to that extent, citing Russia and China as a precedent while having Chinese troops on your border encroaching on your territory is bad for both principle and tactical diplomacy. That's all I want to say. Except that,
Okay,
in
that's
principle, we all agree, no intervention. But it's a real
Yeah.
world. We got to get real.
Okay, so let me bring in Siddharth now. There's so many things that have actually been said, and we're awaiting the court order. It hasn't come. You're talking about a big expose. Madhavan is talking about democratic values now being everybody's business. But at the hub of this is an allegation of corruption. And some might say, just as they're arguing in America, that corruption cannot be conflated with democracy. What do you say to that? Can we unmute Siddharth, please? Give me a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good that this question has come up, because this is the central context to what everything is happening. Everything is happening because Mr. Kejriwal is arrested. So what has really happened is that BJP has blown the constitution to smithereens. By how? ED can arrest any person anywhere. That is the law. Then that person suffers jail. Then that same person pays electoral bond to, surprisingly, BJP itself. Then the ED court tells the court that it has no objection to that guy's bail. Next, that guy wants an approver. Now that guy names anyone that the BJP wants him to name. The ED arrests the next guy named by him. This xerox of a modus operandi is done again and again. Now, a moot question is, what if on the same principle, tomorrow Arvind Kejriwal names Barkha Dutt as one of the beneficiaries, or names the Pradhanji, BJP's Pradhanji, as one of the beneficiaries? Then will the ED come to Barkha Dutt and arrest her? Will the ED be forced to go to the Pradhanji and arrest him? The issue now is no more corruption, because BJP confessed to ED accused funding it. This is now a war against BJP's cruelty. And surprisingly, there is no place for cruelty, especially in Hinduism. So that is the key issue here. And as far as I think group captain spoke very nicely, but one thing we need to understand, that isn't it true, Barkha, that just recently in the past week or so, the US has said in a congressional hearing that India has accepted that its rogue operatives operated on US soil. So if the US has done that, if the US is saying that that is the narrative with US, then exactly that is what I'm trying to say, that you are inviting the US's wrath for no reason. If your rogue operatives are operating in the the US State Department will start speak about you, even if I don't like that happen.
Okay. You're talking about Gurpatwant Pannu, a Khalistani terrorist, a most wanted man in India, and an ongoing huge battle between India, Canada, and the United States of America, with allegations that there has been a kind of rogue operation that attempted to take him out. Now, I'm just putting.
I didn't name anyone. I didn't name anyone.
No, I am doing it for the context of our audience who may not know what you're referring to. I will let Group Captain respond to that particular point, but to Sanjay Hegde first, because this point being made about the misuse of the ED, the BJP's cruelty, that corruption cannot be conflated with democracy. You see, Trump's followers in America, would actually argue it in reverse. They would say all manners of law are being invoked against us to keep us out of the legal process. The liberals would then say, oh, no, it's just about the law. It's about the Capitol Hill insurrection. Here we are saying the opposite. Here there is someone facing charges of corruption. Now let's come to the point that Siddharth raised about approvers and why this story might connect to electoral bonds. There is at the heart of the AAP's argument a company called Aurobindo Pharma. Aurobindo Pharma is promoted by a man called Sharath Reddy. He's a Hyderabad-based businessman. He gets arrested in the same case for which Kejriwal has been arrested. Few days after his arrest, he purchases 5 crores of bonds for the BJP. Subsequently, his total contribution between Aurobindo Pharma and affiliated companies is 55 crores. He also gives 15 crores to the BRS. He gives 2 crores or 2.5, I think, to the TDP. I'm saying this from memory, so please forgive me if I've got some number wrong. The argument legally being made, while approvers as an accepted feature of Indian law, that this is morally problematic. As a lawyer, what do you say about this approver?
As a lawyer, also, I'd say that an approver's evidence is a weak form of evidence and is not easily accepted without corroboration. The approver will also be subject to cross-examination. Now, the same sequence of events that you say, the ED is concentrating on the first part of it, saying that there was some money delivered in Goa and that the party knew about it and therefore the head of the party knew about it, etc., etc., etc. They have not been really able to prove a money trail according to what is available in the public domain so far. But quite coincidentally, and as a consequence of the striking down of the electoral bonds, what's come out in the public domain is that there was this man who first got bailed, then turned approver, and also paid money through electoral bonds to possibly secure the favors. The favor that his bail would not be opposed. And therefore, any lawyer who's on the defense side who gets to cross-examine him will have a very good opportunity to break apart his testimony, saying that it was procured out of fear and all that. And we never know when we are finally going to trial in this matter. You must remember that the Supreme Court in Manish Sisodia's case, which was said finish the trial within 6 months. We are nowhere near even filing a charge sheet. Yeah. So, Barka, you compared the Trump situation with Kejriwal. There's one very important difference. In the US, you jail people after a trial. After a trial and after the jury of their peers says they are guilty, and then you decide the sentence. Unless, of course, they plead guilty in a plea bargain with the prosecutors. Here in India, what we have is a system where the investigative officer decides that I can lock you up and then let the court deal with all the law and everything and then decide whether you should be admitted to bail. There is no pressure for a speedy trial. So the process becomes not only the punishment, it becomes retribution in advance. So therefore, there is a huge difference. And forget which party comes to power. At the end of the day, this law, the PMLA, has now become so widely couched and so widely abused that some government will have to take a look and say, look, if we have to run a democracy, this overbroad law cannot be sustained. Otherwise, you're quite, somebody was quite right when they said, oh, next they can come and say, Barka Dutt got so much, Sanjay Hegde got so much, Mr. Augustine got so much. And we all tried proving the negative.
Can I jump in? Can I just jump in? There's been no relief. Yes. The High Court order is in. I just wanted to give an update on that. Can we also take it on the banners? That was anticipated. No relief for Arvind Kejriwal from the Delhi High Court today. Justice Swarnakanta Sharma has given the Enforcement Directorate time till the 2nd of April to file a reply to Kejriwal's interim plea. The next date of hearing is 3rd April. Sanjay, so if you have a quick comment on that, and then we'll go around the panel.
See, there was a technical argument that the papers had not been served on the ED. They wanted to put in a reply. and they've got the time to put in a reply. The argument on the AAP side was, look, the remand anyway ends tomorrow, so give us a judgment one way or the other before the remand ends. Tomorrow, it is very likely that police remand in the PMLA case will be over. But I also read somewhere that the CBI is going to jump in and seek remand in the original Prevention of Corruption Act case. So it's only after all the investigative agencies have taken the person on remand, and then thereafter, finally, the court says, now I'm going to send him to judicial remand, is bail normally considered. So AAP seems to be litigating at every stage of the process. So it is not unlikely that at many stages, the courts will say, look, we have to go through the procedure. Currently, we can't give you relief.
Okay, this is all a lot of sort of technical stuff, and I think it's not come without any surprise. There will also be an appearance in court tomorrow where the Aam Aadmi Party is talking about Arvind Kejriwal, wanting to make a big expose in court. I want to just bring reactions, Group Captain. There was a larger reference to America, to Pannu. Pannu has tried to drag Kejriwal actually into the crosshairs of his comments, and thankfully no one in India is going to give him time of day, whatever be our internal arguments. Go ahead, Group Captain.
See, Barka, you and I know this, and you know this very clearly what my stand on this is. When a terrorist names somebody, it is always to burn that person. So I will not take cognizance of what Panu says. Because if Panu, it really surprised me when Panu took Kejriwal's name and probably forced me to rethink on my stand on Kejriwal also. Not that I'm not saying there is no smoking gun, there could be. But the point is, Panu took Kejriwal's name was, in my opinion, is to burn Kejriwal, which means, taking a leaf from what Sanjay just said about the approver angle, which means probably Panu didn't give any money. It is as simple as that. That is how I look at it, because that is how, in my stint in intelligence also tells me that is how things move. But I also want to tell Siddharth this. While under interrogation, you can't take anybody's name and get away with it, because people who are doing interrogation, they are very well trained people. They exactly know what to ask you, and they are only looking for a little more information. 90% of the time, they already have information. So unko behkana fuslana is not easy. So that is just a little point from my side. But the fact of the matter still remains, Barka, is taking Panu on face value is the most stupid thing to do. Nobody should do it. I don't think government is doing anything about it.
I prefaced it by saying, thankfully, whatever be our internal conversations, that's not something we're going to entertain. That is something where India will close ranks. Sandeep, I see your hand going up. Sandeep Ghosh, let's bring him. Sandeep, yeah.
I'll just, we have conflated many issues. We have conflated diplomacy, Hinduism, jurisprudence, and a whole lot of things to kind of politics, certainly to kind of.
But we were not expecting Kejriwal to become a global talking point. I mean, we didn't know that.
But that's not. I think the two point, about PMLA is how democratic bits of it and all. I think two or three we need to, where we are missing out. Not we. I think what I would say Aam Aadmi Party is missing out, or anybody else, if it's a judicial issue, and Aam Aadmi Party is no small fry. You and I, if tomorrow, as Siddharth, God willing, it doesn't happen to you or me, we may not be able. You may be able to, because you've got lots of friends in Delhi, to go and afford a top lawyer to represent you. Aam Aadmi Party doesn't have a problem if they can get Abhishek Manu Singhvi and less of them do it. Then at least they are getting the best legal resources apart from their own legal luminaries they have within the system. So they should fight it legally. Number two is the fact that if PMLA is an issue, political parties must fight it in parliament, rather than depending first on judicial activism, then now invoking international intervention, etc., to change a law in our own country where parliament reigns supreme, I think we are barking up the wrong tree. And finally, we are deflecting from all these things. Nobody is asking, why is Arvind Kejriwal speaking to Sunita Kejriwal to the public when he has got some senior ministers of his over there? Why are these two parallel tracks happening? Is Sunita Kejriwal a constitutional authority to be speaking on his behalf to the public? So there are a lot of fault lines even within AAP. The facts are not so simple, and we cannot deflect it by saying what's true in Hinduism and not true in Hinduism, and what Modi is Vishwaguru. Modi's same Vishwaguru taunt was made, Qatar, and we saw finally Modi got these people back home.
I think it's an interesting point about whether Arvind Kejriwal will have to resign if this drags on. Why is Miss Kejriwal, his wife, speaking for him? And I'll take that to Siddharth in a moment. Madhavan and Sanjay, and then we need to take last comments. Madhavan? Sandeep, you're saying something? Yeah. You have to go? Okay. We'll let Sandeep go. Madhavan, thanks, Sandeep. Yeah, Madhavan, go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly, I think the way Sanjay Hegde discussed the process of law, it was fitted into this Hindi maxim, court kacheri karwa denge. And that is precisely an issue. As for Sandeep Ghosh's talking about jurisprudence and the rule of parliament, the fact is that both German and US statements have emphasized on the constitutional process of law, and there seems to be sufficient evidence to suggest that while everything is acting as per law ostensibly, there is a big gap between the constitutional idea of a democratic trial and what has been turned from an exception into a rule of the sparing use of UAPA and PMLA being converted into mainstream. And as I see it, that is something that all democratic countries would be concerned about. But I think it's also important to note that this is an occasion for, it's a well-known open secret that Western democracies, with their history, what happened in Europe of hyper-nationalism, whether it's the former Yugoslavia or what's happening in Hungary now, I think the Western democracies have legitimate concerns about anything that smacks of authoritarianism. Okay. And I know, let's take the bull by its horns. We don't have to agree with everything they say. They don't have to agree with everything we say. But there is sufficient data, which Siddharth said, as he said, as being observed by diplomats in Delhi, which go back to their headquarters and they wait for the right occasion to just put in that needle where it's required. Now, that is something for us as Indians to take cognizance of. There are some...
Yeah, let's just move it along. We have just a couple of minutes left. I want to play out Sunita Kejriwal's comments have come into focus, and I want Sanjay, Dr. Augustine, and Siddharth finally to tell us why she's speaking. Someone raised the point. Why is she speaking? Could there not be an interim chief minister? Constitutionally, can the government be run from jail? We're also dealing with an unprecedented situation here. So let's forget the Americans for 2 minutes and talk about what's happening at home. Take a look at the chief minister's wife releasing this statement earlier today.
हमारे यहाँ रेड मारी, मात्र 73,000 रुपए मिले, तो वो इस सो कॉल्ड शराब घोटाले का पैसा है कहां? अरविंद जी ने कहा है कि इसका खुलासा वे 28 मार्च को कोर्ट के सामने करेंगे, सारे देश को सच-सच बताएंगे कि इस सो कॉल्ड शराब घोटाले का पैसा है कहां, उसका सबूत भी देंगे.
So we're going to see some drama in court tomorrow, but there is questions around why she is speaking. Sanjay Hegde, it's a legal question. Can a government be run from jail? We don't know the answer to this because we've not had a sitting chief minister in jail. There's also the point, somebody made this point politically on one of my previous shows, that if he doesn't elect a new leader, his government becomes vulnerable and he is then in danger of losing his MLAs or his MPs. And Siddharth would know this already, that AAP has lost its Member of Parliament Sushil Kumar Rinku in Punjab and its MLA Sheetal Angural, who have both decided to join the BJP. So yes, go ahead, Sanjay Hegde. I can't hear Sanjay. Can we unmute him? Yeah, Sanjay?
One, sorry.
Yeah.
Running a government from jail is unprecedented.
Sanjay, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Yeah, we
Can you
lost
hear
you
me?
brief. Yeah, we lost you briefly. Just start again, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, running a government from jail, while
Yeah.
unprecedented, is not something that cannot be done. Courts can pass orders. In the case of the Thara Shri, he conducted his business from jail because that company had to be liquidated, or assets had to be liquidated.
Mhm.
So, while it is unprecedented, it can still be done. But whether it should be done, should it not be done, that's a different question. And the precedents are both ways. The Madras High Court refused in Senthil Balaji's case to ask the Chief Minister to throw him out of the government. The Supreme Court dismissed the SLP against it.
Mhm.
On the other hand, there was the Jayalalitha case where she had been convicted and still was elected to be Chief Minister. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot do it. So, if this question squarely arises, I don't know which way the Supreme Court will rule. As far as the President's rule is concerned, yes, the governor may take a view saying that it's not according to the Constitution as he sees it. That also will be subject to to judicial review. Lastly, as far as these defections are concerned, that is a political question. The longer that pressure is put on the head of the party, that is when the character of the party will come out.
But do you
Whether
believe
these are-
President's rule? If you were legally advising the AAP, what would you say to them legally?
I think, well, legally, I've advised Mr. Kejriwal at times, and he is somebody who contests every point. So,
Okay.
therefore, I would be rather uncomfortable in delivering something which could be seen as judgmental.
Okay, fair. Group captain, quickly, last thoughts, and then Madhavan, and we give the last word to Siddharth. We have to really hurry it along now, I'm afraid. Group captain, yeah.
The question about Madam Sunita coming up and giving that statement, "Aankhein band kar lijiye, you will see his rule." All that is, Barka, even to a child, is quite comical. I'm sure Siddharth will agree with it. There are enough and more able hands, including Siddharth, who can take on this mantle and run the government so well. So, in this age and day and age, it is not easy to fool people, is it not? It is not easy to fool children. I was discussing with some children now; they were of the similar opinion as I, that it was quite comical. So, did BJP achieve what it set out to achieve by Kejriwal hanging on to the post? Decision paralysis, mind you, will eventually affect the common man. That should not happen. Over to you.
Okay, Madhavan, maybe you can come in after Siddharth tells us why it is not a minister in the government, a leader of the AAP that is addressing the press. Why is it Sunita Kejriwal? That question has been raised. I must allow you to respond. Go ahead, Siddharth.
Yeah, I'll answer to you that, Barkha, in the latter part. But because before that, during the show itself, you said that the case today in the High Court or somewhere, it did not get the relief. So basically, what has really happened is that there is something called as Kejriwal, the individual who is fighting a legal battle, but there is also something called the Kejriwal, the idea, which is going to be very political. Kejriwal, the idea, stands for schools. Kejriwal, the idea, stands for mohalla clinics. Kejriwal, the idea, stands for universal health and education. Now coming to the main point. You were speaking about the chief minister's wife giving out statements. It's everybody knows that anybody who is in custody of ED, I think that person is given just half an hour a day or something like that, even on permission, for a family member to visit him. So if she has visited him, and Arvind Kejriwal is the sitting chief minister of Delhi, and the constitution has not barred him from working, uh, she is just telling the people of Delhi that he is right now, even if he is in the custody, he is fulfilling the constitutional sworn affidavits, the oath that he has taken constitutionally. He is trying to fulfill it. So what is the problem here? The people have a right to know that the chief minister that was elected by them, and also mind you that just a few weeks ago, Arvind Kejriwal and Aam Aadmi Party went on a very big survey across Delhi, asking people very clear, point blank, that if Arvind Kejriwal gets arrested, what should be done? And 25 lakh households were surveyed, and nearly 24 lakh people said that we really don't care. We have elected Arvind Kejriwal, we want him to serve. Now, if Mrs. Sunita Kejriwal is the only person who is allowed to meet him, she, as the wife, has a natural right to come out and tell the people that I've seen him, and this is what he is doing inside. Now coming to the third, to the third and the very important point, and this point I think we have missed it. Barkha, I thought that you would have covered it. We have to understand the PMLA Act also comes under the global FATF. The PMLA Act has been made stringent, especially after the US and the United Nations came up with an understanding across in the United Nations that terrorism also has a very clear-cut drugs angle and a very clear-cut money laundering angle. Every PMLA case has to be reported to the FATF. That is a global body. Now, you go through the G20 communique just a few months ago, it spoke about the exact things that I am saying. That is why now the strange thing is that you are putting money laundering cases on certain people and not charging them with either terrorism or drug drug peddling. So FATF itself gets questionable. I think that is what I think the BJP has to understand, that the PMLA Act is not a standalone act. They have to report something to the global body also. And something that has a global ramification, the global people will all automatically speak about it.
I'll give Sanjay the last comment on that new point that has come into the conversation. Madhavan, very, very, very briefly, please, your last thoughts. Yes, Madhavan.
Yeah, my thoughts are very simple. Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party are politically astute. They have a narrative for the media, law and principles for the judiciary. You have Abhishek Manu Singhvi as a lawyer who's from the Congress but representing Aam Aadmi Party. At the same time, Sunita Kejriwal is needed for the optics of the average voter. So there is a management of sentiment, there's a management of narrative, and there's a management of law. And AAP is a very smart, savvy party. Whether we like them or not is a separate issue. It's full of smart people, and this is part of the smart strategy.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde, do you want to come in on this point that Siddharth made about the FATF? I think it's just a new point, making the argument that therefore the world is going to comment. Sanjay?
No, I'm not sure that the world will comment because of the FATF, but I have consistently said that the FATF was only for narcotics and terrorism, and therefore to control drug and arms money. We in India made a mistake by putting in a whole host of other ordinary crimes also into the schedule, and therefore any crime, proceeds of crime, and you give the ED a wholesale license to get into anybody's life.
Okay.
Now, using the ED politically, that is where abuse of bad law makes a case for its total scrapping. It will go the way Tada and Pota went.
I'm going to end where I began. This issue was legal, political, now global, and now we're even talking about the FATF and Gurpatwan Pannu. We're now, terrorism is also entered. So there's a whole 360-degree perspective that is needed. The debate will continue. I'll thank you, gentlemen, to Siddharth, Madhavan, Group Captain, and Sanjay Hegde. Very grateful for your time. And we will continue to track this story, waiting to see what Mr. Kejriwal says in court tomorrow. It's going to be an eventful day, and we'll follow up right after that. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.